Frank's Red Hot is the perfect blend of flavor and heat, so you can use an entire bottle to make recipes like buffalo chicken dip or buffalo nachos, or even things that don't start with buffalo. Frank's Red Hot, I put that on everything.
Craig.
It's been 8 months without you football, but this coming Saturday we'll see the Cougs play again.
Yeah, we will. I want more. Give me more of that song.
Nope, I don't know any more of that.
That's
song,
all you know?
That's all I know.
That's all the lyrics you wrote.
Yeah, I think there's well, that's definitely the case, but I don't think I know another part of that song.
Craig, it's football week.
Oh my god.
We're
We're recording on a Sunday.
Sunday. It is Sunday, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's going to be, by the way, should we tell the listeners what our sort of our tentative plan is heading into the season?
First, let me tell the listeners that they are listening to Podcast versus Everyone, part of the Coug Center Podcast Network. I'm Craig Powers, your host, and my co-host is Jeff Newser.
Yep, that's me. Yeah, like we actually got the name of the show right up. We're getting good at this now. Like if we were being super professional, we'd also tell them, review the show, subscribe to the show, all that good stuff.
Yeah, review and subscribe right now before you get too deep into it.
That's right, before you forget.
You get our podcast, you get the Coug Center Hour.
And if you only ever listen to this on Coug Center, there's little links below. Just click on one of those with your when you're on your phone, and then subscribe to the podcast with whatever the app is in your phone. If you have an iPhone, there's really no excuse. The app is pre-built in, and then you can listen to other college football podcasts. We can recommend some of those somewhere down the line too. But all that's really important is us and Michael with the Coug Center Hour, and I would also recommend the Cougar Football Saturday Cast and
the Coug Talk.
Yeah, Coug Talk with the Wazoo football blog guys. So yeah, recommend all those.
But you can get two of those, the Coug Center Hour and this one, by subscribing. So that's our sales pitch. And if you already subscribed, rate us, give us 5 stars so that more of your Coug friends can find us. Or do the old-fashioned thing and tell your friends to listen to it.
Yeah, you can just tell them. That'd be good.
But we part of our professionalism is doing that up top, not at the end when you've all turned us off already.
I did find out this week that there are people who listen all the way to the end.
Yeah, that's impressive.
That was pretty cool.
Proud of them.
Yeah, I thought so.
So, if you have been listening to us all along, we started this thing in February, I want to say, so it's been a while.
It's hard to believe it's been that long, by the way.
Yeah, but this is our first football season with it. So
first football!
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
But yeah, because we're so excited, we're going to have our regular show, which will be this show, which will be typically be a reaction show to the most recent game. And it'll be our typical long show, and that'll pop every Monday is what we'll be shooting for. And then we'll also be doing a quicker preview-only show that'll be dropping on Fridays. So that'll be a shorter podcast. We'll be only covering the game, no beer, no other nonsense, just a game preview. So you can look forward to that.
We can't promise there won't be nonsense.
Well, there will always be nonsense.
There will probably be nonsense. But, yeah, it's in case you missed that, just so we're clear, we are going to have 2 episodes a week during football season.
On top of that, we also have, in the middle of the week, typically on Wednesday, you'll get the Coug Center Hour from Michael Preston.
Yep.
So you basically can just, on your drive all week, just be listening to Coug Center voices.
Yeah. What else do you really need?
There's nothing else, not in the entire world.
Not in the entire world. No. That will satisfy. We alone will satisfy all of your needs.
Yeah. Well, I do have to admit that Coug Center alone still leaves a hole in my life, and I do like to fill that hole with beer.
There's no hole in your life that can't be filled with beer.
Especially with how much beer I have in the cellar, I can fill a lot of holes.
Also true.
But yeah, Jeff, what are you having on this fine Sunday afternoon?
Well, as I sometimes do, I am actually not having anything at the moment because I do have to take my children somewhere after this, and when I drink, I like to have a beer or two or more than two. But I will say this: so just recently got back from camping. We went camping for a few days for the second time in a couple of weeks as I'm winding down my summer. I got to go back to work on Tuesday, which I know I'm not going to get any sympathy from anybody, but that's sort of where I'm heading right now. So we got out of town one last time. We went to Lake Wenatchee, and while I was there, I had an outstanding IPA from Fort George Brewery, which is their most recent 3-way IPA, which is always a collaboration beer. And it was the Citra version done with Cloudburst Brewing and Ruse Brewing. So one Seattle brewery and a couple of Oregon breweries. And it was totally awesome. And I would absolutely recommend it to anybody who likes just a nice IPA. You can find them in pints, and in fact, I think I'm going to drive back down to Rainier Growlers and buy more of them there's any left.
Did you flip over the can?
I like flip it upside down.
Yeah. Did you see what it said on the bottom?
I don't think I did.
So there's different versions of that beer that they use a primary hop in each one. So if you flipped on the bottom, you'd see the primary hop version. I
was pretty sure that I figured out that it was the Citra, but maybe I didn't. I don't know. Tasted like Citra hops.
I'm going to go ahead and say there's no way that you can figure out that it tastes like.
Oh,
Citra
come
hops.
on!
No,
my palate is that refined.
Nope.
No, I don't
way.
know. Like
Not a chance.
I looked at the ABV on the different versions, and this was one that matched. So that's
okay.
That's what I figured.
So yeah, with that one.
What are you talking about, Craig?
So yeah, that beer is a yearly summertime collaboration. They always do it with one Washington brewery and one Oregon brewery, and then obviously Fort George is where the beer is brewed.
Yep.
And like you said, this year's Cloudburst and Ruse, and this year's different in that they're doing these different versions. Typically, they've just made the same beer over and over again. They roll this thing out. They do beta versions all like spring that you can get at different places, and you can always get at the brewery. Last year it was Holy Mountain and Modern Times, which has a brewery in Portland. That's why they counted. That one was definitely probably one of my favorites. This one, I've had a couple versions of this one. Yeah, very good this year. Probably a little less hazy than last year, so it's pretty interesting.
Well, I will go back to Rainier Growlers and I will verify which version I had, if they have any left.
Yeah. Well, they might have a different version by the time you get there.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. I'll probably drink that one too.
Yeah. But, so you're drinking hazy IPA, and we had a lost episode, which people who have been following along for at least the last couple months would have heard. We recorded almost an entire episode that was just completely lost to the internet. In that episode, I drank a Treehouse Brewing beer. Treehouse is out of Massachusetts. I was really excited to get a can from a friend, and I wanted to highlight them because we talk about, I know, Jeff, you love the hazy IPAs, and we talk about hazy IPAs quite a bit.
Yep.
And Treehouse is kind of one of the OGs of the haze. Kind of they popularized it. They're a big reason why it's called New England style IPA. That's the real kind of term for a hazy IPA, is New England style IPA. So what they came about in 2013, 2012, around there. They weren't the first to brew these sort of hazy IPAs. Like Heady Topper is sort of hazy, and I know they were trying to kind of emulate that in a way. Hill Farmstead had been brewing hazy-ish IPAs, and so, but then Treehouse kind of hit, and they were doing this in cans. Like Heady Topper, they were doing the 60-ounce cans, and they hit the market with these with their two sort of flagship IPAs are Julius and Green. The one I previewed, the one I talked about in the Lost podcast was Julius, but the one I have this time is actually Julius and Green. You usually say Team Julius or Team Green, which one you like better. Green is actually the one I like better, and I've got a can of this one now. I'll have to say it is the reason I got some of this treehouse, I had a friend that went out to Massachusetts recently. Her name is Gingy. I'm calling out her name because last time I had mentioned, a previous podcast, I had mentioned that she had picked up some beer for me from Skookum. But I said that my buddy, he picked up some beer for me, and I just kind of slipped of the tongue, and I felt really bad. So thank you, Gingy, for bringing back some treehouse this time, so I can feature that here. But yeah, this is great, man. It's like it's hazy, kind of. These treehouse ones are a lot of what the breweries are trying to hit the style on. They typically they're the kind of these low bitterness, like they have almost no bitterness sometimes. The green definitely has a little bit more. Galaxy hop is the primary hop IPA on this one. You'll get a lot of pineapple from Galaxy typically, and this one definitely hits on that. It definitely has a little more dank, kind of dank notes to it. That's, like marijuana type notes is when you say dank. Then
How dare
Julius,
you?
yeah, then Julius,
It's a
which
family show. Sorry, I couldn't help
No,
myself.
it's not. It has explicit.
That's
on
true.
It.
We do.
This is not a fucking family show, Jeff.
We do swear occasionally.
Yeah.
We swear. We talk about pot. We're just, whatever.
We call it pot because we're old, apparently.
Yeah.
But
cannabis.
Yeah. So this compared.
Can
to
I interrupt
Julius,
you again one more time?
No, yeah.
Okay.
Shut the fuck up, Jeff.
All right.
But Julius is kind of like more. It lives up to his name. It's got an orange can. It's called Julius, and it has a bit of a. It's definitely got an orangey, and it's very light. This one's a little heavier hitting on the palate, and I dig it. But yeah, Treehouse is awesome. They've expanded their production. You can find a lot more of their beer. Not find it anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere, but you can go to their brewery and actually buy quite a bit. When I visited there a couple years ago, they were still small. There was a limit of 8 cans of one beer, and you could get a 375 milliliter growler. You had a choice of a couple other beers, and you could get one of them. So it was a pretty limited, but now you can go there and buy cases and cases of beer, and go away with all you want. So I definitely, if you're ever in Massachusetts, they're out in they call it Western Massachusetts, which is pretty much to people from Boston, anything west of Boston in Massachusetts. Yeah, so definitely check them out. They're definitely kind of one of the OGs of haze, and worth a try if you can ever get your hands on a can. So thanks, Gingy, for bringing me lots of cans.
Thanks, Gingy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's beer. This one's pretty damn good. I guess I should say that.
Yeah, I always like it when they're pretty damn good. That's always nice.
Yeah.
It's always way worse if it's no damn good. That's for sure.
No, not even a single damn of good. That's I've had beers like that before.
Yeah, I try not to do that.
Yeah, but sometimes
it happens.
You can't predict.
It's true.
Predict.
That is true.
All right, man. So it's nearly football season.
Almost. We did get the first 2 games of the weekend last weekend, or yesterday. I guess it was yesterday.
Well, it's nearly our football season.
That is true. Yeah.
But yeah, we saw last night. As of recording this, nice game between Miami and Florida.
Yeah,
nice,
that was
nice,
crazy.
Typical, crazy
turnover-filled disaster.
Ugly early season matchup, man.
Yeah.
Week 0, baby.
And then, did you see the end of the Hawaii-Arizona game?
Of course.
Oh my God. Can you believe? Okay, so I don't know how many of our listeners have seen it, so I'm going to kind of try to describe it before we get into our own football season. Just a little digression, but why didn't he just follow the blocking wide receiver into the end zone?
Yeah, I don't know why he cut back.
I have no idea why he cut. I mean, it's a tiny bit off the screen, so I don't know. Maybe he saw something that I couldn't totally see, but anyway.
So we're talking about Khalil Tate, quarterback of Arizona. Basically, the final play of the game.
Down a touchdown. They had
the ball about the 35.
Yep.
And he rolled out right. He had a lot of green in front of him. Instead of trying to throw it in, he just decided to run.
Right. It's one of those like, no, what's he do? Oh, wait.
Oh, he might make it.
He might make it.
But I think he could have if he just stayed outside. I think he had the corner. But he decided to cut it back, and this amazing effort by
A defensive
lineman who
a
had missed
a defensive tackle, not like some speedy end, like a tackle.
yeah. Who had, and this is a Hawaii defensive tackle, so
Right.
it's a big dude, and he missed the sack
Yep.
at the start,
Over pursued on the
Just-
on the pass rush.
but kind of read I think he read what Tate was going to do, and
Yeah.
he was there right when he got back.
Chugged
he was right
his
there.
ass 40 yards downfield
Yep.
and tackled him on the 1 yard line to end the game. Spectacular. I loved it. Anyway, so now we're
and the Pac-12 starts off 0-1 in
very-
non-conference play.
very Pac-12 result, right? You got to
Yeah.
go to Hawaii and get beat by Hawaii. Which,
Yeah, when it's the only game on in the entire country.
Yeah, good. The good news is like even fewer people get CBS Sports Network than get the Pac-12 networks. So I don't know how many people actually saw it anyway.
What's that? So yeah, you have a week 0 game, and it's on this like deep cable channel.
Yeah, that's
I
because
know-
the game was at Hawaii. That's the
and they had the Mountain West had rights to it.
The
and
Mountain West. Yep.
They have a deal with CBS Sports because that's why last year WSU's game against Wyoming was on CBS Sports.
Yep. And then I don't know. Once upon a time, I'm pretty sure that game against SMU that Mike Leach called. I think that was on CBS Sports way back when too.
Yep, I believe you are
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So,
But CBS Sports has that deal, and they were probably hoping to just do a week 0 game, and they'll get lots of. But yeah, I don't know if anyone was upgrading their cable package to get CBS Sports. I know when when WC played Wyoming last year, there was some kind of online provider that I could do a 1-week trial with and get the game that way. But I do actually have it now. We've upgraded our package so that B can watch Disney Junior.
Oh,
so now
that's very important.
Because I upgraded to that, I have like all the sports channels now. I have CBS Sports and all that good stuff.
Oh, toodles.
Oh, toodles! You know, in Sesame Street, Elmo he calls for a smartphone and he goes, "Oh, smarty!" So like, no one has any good ideas. Yeah,
That's hilarious.
but B loves "Oh, toodles." Oh, toodles.
Oh, toodles.
Oh, toodles.
That's
is how
right.
she says it.
That's right.
But yep. So she's probably hearing me say it in the other room, and she's probably like, "What?
All right, so
Mickey.
back to the
But
Cougar
anyways,
football. Back to the Cougar football.
Okay, so Cougar football. This is our 2019 season preview.
Hell yeah, it is.
Jeff, you had a good idea for how we're going to do this, so I want to let you explain it.
All right, so here's my brilliant idea. Okay, so you and I are pretty nerdy. Yes, we agree on this.
Yes.
Pretty nerdy. As we, those of you who have been listening to us from the very beginning or reading Coug Center for a long time know this. We prefer things that are quantifiable and measurable. When people go through these season previews, typically what they do is they just go through game by game and they go win, loss, right? And that's fine. That's one good way to do it. Another way to do it is the way that someone working in the realm of probability would do it, which is this. So you would assign a percentage of likelihood to a particular event. And if you have a series of events, all you basically do to determine how many times you expect that event to happen is add up all the probabilities. And so if you think about it this way, a 100% of a win is one win, right? So in order to think, okay, I'm predicting 8 wins for a season, you would need to take all the percentages and they would need to exceed 800%. Okay, because some games are 100%, right? So when we get into this, I imagine both of us are going to be in the 100% area for Northern Colorado, but other games are smaller percentages, like, for example, 0% for the Apple Cup or something in between for one of the other games. So what we're going to do is we are going to assign our percentage of confidence in the probability that the Cougars will win each game, add up our percentages at the end, and kind of see where that comes up with a total win count, and then maybe talk a little bit about whether we think that's in the ballpark of where this team will end up.
Sounds fun, man. I love, we're taking this nerdy concept and then assigning arbitrary likelihoods.
Hell yeah, we are. We're going to be arbitrary and precise at the same time.
Arbitrarily precise.
Arbitrarily precise. That should be our new, that should be the new tagline for the podcast.
Arbitrarily precise.
Arbitrarily precise.
All right, you can buy that T-shirt coming on
There we
Monday.
go.
Yeah.
There we go. T-shirt time.
Yeah, we got to get more taglines so we can sell merch.
We do. Yeah, that's
All
what
right.
it is. All right, so game one.
Game 1, New Mexico State.
Yeah. You want to start or you want me to start?
So we'll just kind of we'll talk about what the team is and whatever. So New Mexico State,
They suck.
They suck. They took a serious dive. They were already bad, but they took a serious dive last year into even worse. They are an independent team. We'll talk about this more on Friday too. But they're an independent FBS team because they got left out when the WAC folded, and then they got kicked out of the Sun Belt like Idaho. Except instead of going because of their association with the WAC, they don't really have a place for their football team to go. So they just decided, screw it. Let's be an independent FBS. So New Mexico has quite a weird schedule. They go to Alabama after they play WSU. They play Ole Miss. They play Liberty twice, who is another independent. So they have a pretty quirky schedule. They aren't good. They have an especially bad defense. They have probably a decent offense, like probably better than you would expect. They just overall not a good program. Historically, they have been to a total of 4 bowl games in their history. Have not lost a bowl game.
Well, that's
3-0-1.
That's...
3 wins, 1 tie.
I am
That's
duly impressed.
Yeah, so I think their last bowl game was 2013 or something. So with their current coach, Doug something, I can't. I was just talking. Doug Martin.
What's his name?
Doug Martin, who has a just awful record, 20-53, I believe. He is at New Mexico State. He coached at Kent State for a bit as well. So at New Mexico State, he is 20-53, I believe, and he was 29-53 at Kent State. So he has a track record of not winning games.
That's the best kind of track record, really.
So I know WSU. So normally, if this was a second game, I'd be 100. I'd keep it 100 all the way. But because of the trauma of 2016 and 2015 and 2014 and 2013 and 2012 is all in my head still. Yeah. I'll have to dock it 10%. I'll go 90%.
Wow. That's a pretty large number.
Yeah, well, they're really bad.
I mean the other way. Like 10%'s a lot.
Hey, man, trauma has a major effect on the
I guess
mind.
It does. Like I took a little bit off too. But I only took it down to like 98%. And that has, again, same thing you said, has to do with the fact it's week 1. Weird shit can happen. We've got a brand new starting quarterback. I mean, look, we talked last week about how we feel good about him, we're confident, but weird things happen. I don't know, maybe there could be a freak, like lightning storm or something that fouls up everything. I don't know. But 2% is the most I'm willing to go. So I give us a 98% percent chance of winning. 98 times out of 100, I think we win this game.
Are you writing these down, or do I? Have to write
I am
down?
writing them down. I'm putting them in a spreadsheet so that the math will be correct in the end.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Trusting the robots.
Hell yeah, I do.
All right, game number 2. We have Northern Colorado, 100%. One of the worst FCS teams, or possibly the worst. One of the worst FCS, probably SWAC excluded. SWAC and some of the other conferences, but that don't participate in the playoffs. But Northern Colorado, definitely one of the worst FCS teams. This is not Eastern Washington. This is not Portland State. This is not Montana State coming in. This is the New Mexico State of the FCS. So 100% on that one.
Right, and it's not game one. Like those other games that we lost, those were game one, weird circumstances. We all know the Eastern thing with, Shalom Luani being out and,
And the messing up the signal.
Yeah, and then Portland State and the weather disaster that was. Plus, they ended up being better than people expected. But again, game one, game two, look, we're going to have some of those kinks worked out in the first game. Northern Colorado is going to come in there. This might be the first time we drop 70.
And it will happen in front of roughly 15,000 people in Martin Stadium.
Yeah, and that would be the only maybe downside or the only thing that would give me just like the tiniest bit of pause would be the idea that, Martin Stadium's going to be kind of lifeless and whatever.
Yeah, when you have back-to-back games of that low caliber, like in back-to-back weekends, a lot of people are just not going to want to do that.
But it is a 2:00 start. And it's not a holiday weekend, so there should be at least a good number of students there.
Well, and I would hope that that's another point on New Mexico State.
Labor Day weekend.
Labor Day weekend students, they've been in school all of a week and they have to leave.
Very homesick after those 7 days.
Yeah, but I guess it's 2 weeks this time. I don't know because I think they started last Monday.
That is true. So 2 weeks. 2 weeks of school. Oh, yeah. Very homesick.
Very homesick. And why would you want to enjoy a 3-day weekend in a town full of 21-year-olds?
I don't know. That just doesn't sound fun at all.
No. Yeah. But yeah, so I'm expecting I'm hoping that just the success of the football team, and particularly last year, will finally. Well, you saw it last year. The students were starting to show up more and more. They showed up earlier. They've been coming earlier and earlier. I'm hoping that'll have an impact, and at least like all of the leftover students who didn't leave for Labor Day will be there. And then I'm hoping the same for Northern Colorado. I'm hoping people are just hyped to go to. I'm thinking going to a football game is fun and cool again. So I'm hoping it is. I'm more worried about both of these games, like the alums kind of picking a game to go to, and or even a season ticket, because a lot of season ticket holders are not going to go to both of them. I'm planning to go to both, but 2 p.m. start. It's kind of a lot of Spokane people can make it there and back really easy for that.
Yeah,
probably Tri-Cities as well.
Yeah,
so hopefully
lots of people should be able to make that. So unless you're coming from Western Washington, it should be pretty easy to go to that one. So,
well, you could technically at 2 p.m. start. You could do the gauntlet from Western Washington. You could get up early.
You could. I would not want to. That would not be the way I would want to spend my Cougar football Saturday, but that's all right.
Hey, if you want to go to the game or not. But
probably not that.
That is the interesting thing about going to Pullman now. You kind of expect to. It's not like going to a Seahawks game or something where you go to the game and then you go home afterwards, or even probably what UW fans have with the Washington games. Like like in Pullman, you kind of expect a certain thing. You expect a tailgate. You expect to stay the night. All that stuff. So you expect to be drunk and but you can't do that if you're driving there and back. And so obviously we have this different expectation. But hopefully some enough fans will come. But yeah, anyways, who cares? No one's going to be there. Still 100%.
Yeah. That's basically bottom line. Bottom line, it's if you want to show up and watch a team drop 70, then you'll show up. So 100%. Yeah.
All right.
Now, something less than 100%.
Yeah, so now we're getting to where it's tricky, playing all legit football teams from here on out. Houston is not a Power 5 team, but they desperately want to be.
That is true.
They're probably one of the closest things in a Group of 5 conference to a Power 5 school. They have a very good history, recent history. They have a Mike Leach disciple who has a good history in Dana Holgerson as the coach. They have a very good quarterback who spells his name. It's Derek, but it's spelled
D''ERIQ, right?
You're right.
I think.
Something like that.
Yes.
Derek King,
Yes.
who had 50 total touchdowns last year. So
That's a lot.
36 passing, 14 rushing. So definitely, that's going to be a tough challenge for the defense, especially given the losses they've had in the secondary. Thankfully, they'll have had 2 games to get into shape before this, but this is going to be like nothing they've seen. This will be a better offense than they'll see in most of the Pac-12. So, and a better talent at quarterback than they'll see in most of the Pac-12. So, it'll definitely be a tough matchup for the defense. However, Houston has what we expect to be a pretty bad defense, and we've seen WSU quarterbacks. Going back to, a lot of them, like even Connor Holiday, Luke Falk, and Gardner Minshew even last year, they really hit their stride after a couple games, and we see like better performances, because even like Minshew did well against Wyoming, but his yards per attempt wasn't very good, and all that stuff, and you kind of were like, oh well, this isn't much of an like you expect a guy to throw over 300 yards in the air raid, of course, but Minshew by the third game, the fourth game was really rolling. Falk was always that same way. He always started out the seasons really slow. So I expect though that Gordon will be kind of more in tune by then, and I think we're going to drop quite a few puntos on them, maybe drop 50 in this game. But that defense does worry me. It does. So I'm actually just going 60% on this one.
Yeah, this reminds me a little bit of maybe the Arizona game last year in Pullman, in the sense that,
so it's going to be a 69
yeah,
point.
I don't know if we're going to score 69 points, but I think even if we're honest, and I watched some highlights of that game again last week, just marveling at the craziness of it all. But Arizona really should have scored more points. They had a turnover. They had, the kickoff debacle, all that. But, the reality was that, you obviously can't win the game if the other team is scoring on like every possession. And that's sort of what I imagine in this game happening, is the idea that, Houston can score some points, and it'll probably feel a little bit like a back and forth affair early on. But I imagine a situation where it's like, we're scoring, a couple touchdowns every quarter, maybe 3, and, Houston just maybe can't quite keep up with that pace. And, so in the end, it feels early on kind of like a slugfest, but then by the end it's a 2 or 3 touchdown margin and things are pretty comfortable. So I'm going to go ahead and give us a 70% chance to win this game. 30% owing to the possibility that the defense is just total trash and really can't stop anybody at all, and there's some turnovers and things like that. But I really do feel like a little bit too much respect is being given to Houston on this one. Yeah, they do have an explosive quarterback, but
well, I point out the Friday
game thing is real. That's
worries me a bit as well.
That's true. But again,
I am glad it's not playing on campus.
Yes,
so.
And coming off of a couple of what should be fairly easy victories, that should, if like you said, if this was on campus and you're playing the game outdoors in the humidity of Houston and all of that kind of stuff, then that may present a different kind of problem. But playing in an NFL stadium, air conditioned, perfect passing, atmosphere, I just feel like it's that Houston will probably make it feel close, but in the end, it'll probably be a double-digit victory.
Yeah, I should point out that Houston starts the season at Oklahoma, so
yeah,
they do not get a soft landing like WSU.
No, they do not.
Even if you look at their non-conference schedule, they go Houston, they have an FCS team, and then they have another ranked team in WSU coming to visit them. And it's a pretty tough schedule, but then you get Tulane in North Texas after that.
And also worth noting that this is the closest thing to our offense that we're going to face all year, and so the defense, which consistently practices against us, Obviously Holgerson does not run the full meal deal, quote unquote, pure air raid. A lot more running concepts mixed in,
right?
But you're still going to see many of the same passing concepts, and so in theory, maybe the defense is a little more ready for what's going to come at them. So.
All right. Well, you've almost talked me up, but I'll stick with my 60. I've already lost half a game.
You have.
Man, well, you round up anyway, so.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, so let's move on.
Pac-12 play.
So I'm super stoked for this game. If you go on the football schedule, they say there's 75 tickets left for it, so obviously a lot of fans are I'm stoked because I know that this is the game that a lot of WSU fans have circled to go to Pullman for. And WSU kind of knew that. They made it the all anthracite weekend because we don't really have, we don't have the obvious sort of like big game coming up like USC when they first did it, and then the game day game, they obviously brought it out for that. But so, like, let's just get the all anthracite out of the way. UCLA is a big deal for the players. A lot of our players are SoCal guys that did not get offers from UCLA. So they love playing these SoCal schools. I know we had talked a couple weeks ago how this being the one that I probably am worried about a little bit more than I should be. As we get closer to the season, I've backed off on that a little bit. I think UCLA is definitely going to be improved from last year, Chip Kelly's second season. He's a good college football coach, and I fully expect them to be a good team eventually. I think they'll be on their way to that this season, probably. Even a bowl team at least, I think, this year. But I'm still I still think this is, with the crowd, is going to be hyped, and I think WSU's players are going to be hyped, and you get that extra day coming off of Houston. You get that extra day of rest, and probably going to be a late night game. I'm going to say it's probably going to be like a 7:30 game. So people will be hyped. People will be juiced and sauced up, and I'm actually going 80% WSU for this one.
Wow.
Yeah, I told you I've come around to it. I've gotten hyped for it. Now I think we're just gonna come out hyped up and get the job done.
Yeah, I'm also pretty high on this game. A lot of it has to do with the fact that when I watched UCLA last year, and I know that was, first year Chip Kelly and all that stuff, they just didn't look good, and it's the kind of thing that you look at and go, maybe there's actually a problem here. And I know, a lot of it was that they had a lot of guys transfer out, and whatever, year zero recruiting class, all that kind of stuff. But it was just the sort, I think most of us think Chip Kelly, and we think really good coach, the kind of coach that maybe should turn something around pretty quickly. Especially given the fact that, UCLA, and again, I know there were defections, but Jim Mora at the very least recruited really well while he was there. In theory, the cupboard should not have been completely bare. And for them to play as poorly as they did for as much of the season as they did sort of made me go, I don't know if, Chip Kelly's lost a little off the fastball or what. And then, of course, they had this past recruiting year, didn't have a great recruiting class. So I don't know. I mean, Chip Kelly may eventually turn this around, but if either A, maybe he's not as good of a coach as he was, only because, sometimes the game passes you by a little bit, and, that could be it. I mean, the things he was doing at Oregon are no longer revolutionary, right? And then,
right.
There's also the piece that, okay, well, maybe the talent was that bad. Okay, well, if we look at our own program, I mean, it really took 4 years for that. Now, I understand that that UCLA probably didn't crater the way that Paul Wolf did in terms of the talent on the roster, but if the talent level's that low, it may take until year 3 or so for it to kick in. So, I tend to think that it's maybe something more along those lines. And so I, like you, am actually pretty optimistic about this game. I'm going to give it a 75% chance, a 75% chance.
All right. I think we're a third of the way through the schedule, but I think it's time for us to let our sponsors have a chat.
Yeah,
with
we'll take
you.
a break.
Take a break. All right, man.
Oh, that was exciting.
That got me hyped.
That was exciting.
Oh, geez.
You know what else gets me excited? Playing Utah.
Oh, yeah. Probably one of the most obnoxious online fan bases this side of Florida State.
Yeah.
And yeah, so obviously they kind of have this. They came into the Pac-12 recently, and they were they weren't in a power conference before, so I think they have a little bit of insecurity about that. Last year was their first time they kind of really took a step forward. They won the South, which obviously was a bit down. So they benefited from that, but they still and now Utah is getting so much national love this year.
So much national love.
I saw a game day that Lee Corso had them in the national title game. I think even Utah fans are like, okay.
Sure.
I mean, Utah's, their schedule isn't full of gimmies, so I don't. Obviously, WSU has won, I believe, the last 3 matchups with Utah.
Yeah, I think that's right.
But spread out over more years than that because of the unbalanced schedule. But yeah, so Utah. The interesting thing about this is if WSU gets clean through the first 4 and Utah gets clean through the first 4, this is a prime game day matchup. Because if you're thinking if both of them get clean, it might be like a 10 versus 15 type of matchup by then. But Utah does have BYU to open at BYU, a Thursday night game this coming Thursday, and then they have at USC, and you just never know with USC. They could be amazing. Who knows? But if they get through those 2, you gotta expect they'll be roughly around number 10 by the time we head there. That is it's definitely a home field advantage. It's at elevation. They get raucous there for sure. They have great support. It's a tough place to play, although WSU has had success there the last couple times. Obviously not in Leach's first season, where that was pretty much rock bottom, was at Utah. But in 2014, one of their few wins was a 21-point comeback win, and then in 2016 was the last time they played there?
2017, I think.
2017, when
with
Mataafa
a billion
dominated,
turnovers,
billion turnovers, and WSU kind of made it look closer than it should have been at the end, but it was really what should have been a WSU domination. But yeah, and then we have a last year's last fourth quarter comeback win to beat Utah as well. So Utah probably definitely has this game circled, given the nature of that loss, and particularly last year, which had it been played later in the season would have been a marquee matchup nationally, probably. But because it was early, neither team was ranked, and we had no idea how important it was. But this year, Utah, they kind of, when they came to Pullman is when they had gotten their offense figured out last year. They were awful early, but WSU still was pretty successful against them outside of the first, especially once they locked down the second half. They limited them quite a bit. This year, it's tough to gauge, just because it's on the road. Utah, I know, is going to be good. WSU, I know, is going to be good. I still think this is going to be a tough one for the Cougs to pull out, even with the history. I'm going to go probably 40% on this one. 40% confidence level.
For me, this so people who listened a couple weeks ago would know that this was the game where I said I'm probably more confident than I'm supposed to be. And
right.
So you said 3-game win streak. It's actually a 4-game win streak. against
All
Utah.
right.
So we haven't lost to Utah since that 2012 game. We beat them in 2013 and 2014. Beat them again in 2017, which you mentioned, and then of course last year, which you also mentioned. So, we have this 4-game win streak, and I think sometimes you just have a team's number a little bit, and I think that could be the case here. Now, it also could be the case that it's just dumb luck and whatever, but. Until I see Utah beat us again, I'm not really going to place a whole lot of stock in how good Utah is. And there's also an element of, and I think we've talked about this on the podcast before, but, I feel like Utah is just sort of perennially overrated. That people, they've got sort of this weird love affair with Kyle Whittingham, as if he's like this amazing coach. And, he's a good coach. He's a fine coach. He puts a lot of guys in the NFL, but what have they really accomplished? They played in the Pac-12 championship last year. Congratulations for winning the South. WSU would have won the South if WSU played in the South. So, Oregon might have won the South if they had played in the South. It's just,
Right.
whatever. So anyway, I'm having a hard time getting on the Utah hype train on this one, just again for all the reasons I just mentioned. So, I do think they're going to be good. They do have a quarterback and a running back who each have been injured at times. So who knows if they, sort of show up unscathed in that game. So I'm going to go ahead and call this one a true coin flip. I'm going to give it a 50%. Call it a 50-50 game where I think it'll be tight. I do reserve the right to come back to this later. If it turns out in those first, 4 games, we look at our defense. I know, some people are worried about our defense. If we come back and it's like, our defense is, then, maybe I'll revise that idea. But I kind of think, if everything is as I think it is right now, I think we've got as good a chance to win that game as Utah does.
Great. Now we're moving on to a place that has been a historic horror show for Arizona State, and there's a couple on this schedule this year.
Oh yeah. Which horror show are you talking about, Craig?
That would be Tempe,
Arizona.
Arizona.
That one. That's right, that one.
The place where, little did we know at the time, but the 1997 national championship hopes died. And just an all-around place that's been just an awful place. Although the last time WSU was there, they won with Luke Falk, and again, I guess it would have been 2016.
I think that's right.
And they were,
2 years off.
Yeah. Well, maybe 2017 then. But they won. That was Robert Taylor ran a touchdown back. That might have been 2017 then. They definitely won the last time. But I just remember it was just crazy that they would win in Arizona State.
Yeah.
Arizona State's a weird program to gauge right now. They got this very weird setup with Herm Edwards as kind of the CEO coach. They kind of were a little bit better than people thought they would be last year. This year, I just don't know. There's a lot of Tempe horror show. I'd probably be more confident in this game if the memories of Tempe weren't there. So I'm going with 50-50 against Arizona State.
Yeah, we had not before the last time we won a game there before 2016. So let's see, lost in 2014, lost in 2012, lost in 2010, lost in 2008, lost in 2006, lost in 2004. We won in 2001. So,
yes.
that was very exciting with our 11th ranked team winning by 12 points against Arizona State in 2001. So lots and lots of L's against Arizona State over the years, particularly since then. Between 2004 and now, we've only beaten Arizona State 3 times. So this is one that I kind of go, again, I do think that we're the better team. I do think that they should win, but I'm going to go ahead and just give it like a 55%. So just a little more than the coin flip. By the way, I forgot to write down yours. What did you say yours was again?
50-50.
That's right, coin flip. So I think we're both about on the same page there. And again, this is one of those that's like you sort of mentioned, hard to call because second-year coach, it's kind of like UCLA. You're not really sure what you've got. And I think that people were sort of like, oh, Herm Edwards isn't so bad when they beat Michigan State. And then Michigan State ended up being total trash. And, it was like whatever. I think there's a lot of room for feeling like, maybe Herm Edwards still isn't a very good coach. And that would change that. One other factor I would point out also is we will be coming off a bye in there. So if you just look at the schedule straight on through and you see, back-to-back road games, Utah, Arizona State, well, there's a bye in between, which in theory should help. So after 5-game stretch to open the season, a couple of road games, one against Houston, one against Utah, you get a bye before you have to go to Arizona State. That's a really well-placed bye, breaking up back-to-back road games, and that's one of 2 times that happens. So it's actually with the 2 byes this season, I think that's a really, really good spot for one, and I think gives us a better chance in the game against ASU than maybe we otherwise would get.
Cool. 55-45 for you, 50-50 for me.
Yeah, so we're halfway through, by the way. You want to know what the totals are at this point?
No.
You want to save it till the end?
Okay, fine. You seem really excited.
All right, so
about
halfway through, I've got us down for 4.5 wins, and you're down for 4.2 wins.
Oh man!
So we sort of both are in the ballpark of like 4 wins ish, maybe 5. So, if we started off 4-2, well, let's just say real quick, if we start off 4, how you feeling if we're 4-2 at this point?
It probably depends how it shakes out.
But if I told you right now, I'll give you 4 wins in the first 6 games.
I'd probably not take it because I think that we could do better.
Interesting.
Because I think that 5-1 is definitely a strong possibility.
Yeah. I mean, I'd go. I do think 5-1 is a strong possibility. I mean, I'm kind of right in between 4 and 5 wins, but I'm kind of like, I could easily see 4 and I could easily see 5. Anything outside of that, 3 would be a massive, massive disappointment. And 6,
3-3 at this point, there's something wrong.
Yeah, and 6 would be 3-3 at this point. You're probably talking lots of injuries, quarterback problems, things like that. 6-0 would be pretty. Like, I don't think it's impossible, but I think it would be.
That would be an impressive 6-0.
It would,
given 3 road wins.
Yeah, it would, especially with having to go beat Utah. That would be 6-0 would be pretty impressive. At this point,
they'd be in the top 10 if they were 6-0.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, beating what probably would have been a top 10 Utah. So yeah. All right, so halfway through, we're looking at like 4 or 5 wins. And then we come back home for.
And then
That's right, back home.
For back home for homecoming, for Colorado.
Yep.
So Colorado, man, the new coach. He doesn't really have any head coaching experience.
No, but he's tough, man. He's coming from the SEC.
Yeah, he was defensive coordinator for Georgia.
Defense.
So that automatically means he's good.
Yeah. He must be.
Of course, they had a defensive-minded coach before this, who they had a pretty damn good defense a couple of years ago, and then that kind of didn't, that kind of faded out. I just, Colorado had 5 wins last year, but they weren't even that good. It was when they lost that. Game to Oregon State, that they kind of blew their chance at getting to a bowl game because you just saw the rest of their schedule and there was no way they were going to win another game. I just don't see them being a whole lot better this year. I know people are high on Montez as a quarterback. Obviously, they have Chenault But he's a receiver. Like, how much impact can a receiver possibly make? They touch the ball, or they have the ball coming at them maybe 15 times at the most, and they're getting tired if that's happening. I have no idea about this coach, if he's going to be good, if he's not going to be good, whatever. He's been an NFL defensive coordinator. He's been a college defensive coordinator, but really he's never. He's been an interim head coach, but never a full-time head coach, and especially he's never run a college program. So, he's curious. He could be the next great thing. I just don't see him as a coach that's going to make this immediate impact with great improvement. So I'm thinking Colorado's not going to be that good again this year. So I'm pretty confident about this one. I think with homecoming, people will be excited, but there's always October. It can be rainy and annoying, and rainy games typically favor especially given our offense, favor the underdog playing us. But yeah, I'll still I said 80 for UCLA. I'll probably go 80 for Colorado as well.
Yeah, that's right in the ballpark. That's actually right where I'm going to be, is at 80%. I happen to think Colorado's going to be quite bad. Like, that's like I am. There's nothing about Mel Tucker that screams, instant program changer to me. And that was a roster that was pretty. It wasn't the sort of thing where you looked at the roster last year and went, okay, if only they were better coached, they'd be in good shape, right? Like, right. I don't think McIntosh was a bad coach. So that tells me that this is more than a 1-year project. Chenault really is great. He's also a returner, so he's going to touch the ball
right.
A number of times. But with the game being at home, as you talked about, and being the first home game since the end of September, it should be well attended, right? And there won't be
homecoming.
Yeah, it's homecoming.
So
there won't be another home game until early November.
November 16th.
Right, because we've got two road games and a bye sandwiched on both sides of this game. So It should be well attended. Crowd should be excited. It should be a good one. So I'm in the 80% as well for this one, because I just think that, like I said, I think Colorado is actually going to be quite bad. I think there's a good chance that they could be worse than UCLA, and be at the bottom of the Pac-12 South this season. Maybe even worse than Arizona. Maybe Arizona's not as bad as they looked against Hawaii. But I think that UCLA, Arizona, Colorado, they're all going to be kind of fighting it out for the bottom of the South. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. That's what I feel really good about.
Yeah, and now kind of an interesting schedule thing. Truth be told, I've never noticed this before, and it might be how it usually goes, but I don't think it is. But all of the rest of the games are against the Pac-12 North.
Yeah.
All the Pac-12 North games are on the back end of the schedule.
So first 4 games against the South and last 5 games against the North.
Yeah. So,
kicks off with Oregon.
Immediately after Colorado homecoming. We're going to Oregon, program that WSU has beaten 4 years in a row, and particularly the last 3 years pretty handily. I know the last 2 times they've won in Eugene, Oregon has not had their starting quarterback. Just going to assume that they do this year, although you never know. Herbert was hurt last time, but assuming they do, I think Oregon will be slightly better than they were last year, but who knows about that? But they return quite a bit, but I think they'll be slightly better. This will be a lot tougher than the game last year, especially given that it is in Eugene. I am probably would again, like with Utah, lean towards the home field advantage for Oregon a bit. So I'll go 45% for WSU on this one.
We're getting some serious groupthink here going on this one,
Yeah.
because that's actually the number I'm targeting too. I tend to think that Oregon is better than Utah, as I'm kind of thinking this through and thinking about how the different teams stack up that are supposed to take a step up. Oregon, I think, has a better, foundation of talent. They have question marks, like a lot of people do. I think they might be overrated just a little bit, mostly because people they like the quarterback. But, Herbert did some serious damage to us last year once they stopped asking him to throw the ball 50 yards downfield on every play. He's mobile. He's big. He can make some ridiculous throws. I think, obviously question marks about their receivers. And so, there might be some issues there, but, they have supposedly NFL talent on their offensive line. They're always going to have a stable of running backs. I think what it really comes down to is, can Cristobal coach? And I think the jury's still out on that one a little bit.
Right.
Now, he has poached, approximately 85% of our coaching staff along the way in an effort to try and make his coaching staff better. But he's still the guy in charge, and I'm not convinced that he really has what it takes to take Oregon to the next level that everybody seems to be predicting for them this year. Given that they were, I don't know, there were 10 people or whatever that picked them to win the North or whatever it was. So, lots of people predicting that, lots of people predicting them to win the Pac-12 championship. So I'm not sure I'm on that train yet, but I do think that, given that Oregon maybe is a little more talented than Utah, and I gave Utah I gave them the coin flip treatment. And I think this is one also where, Oregon is, they're going to want to reclaim something after the way they got slapped around last year. So I do think those kinds of things only go, I think those things really kind of only go so far. I don't know that, you can, carry too much in that. Look, we want to kill Washington every year, and that obviously doesn't work out. But I do think that the crowd is going to be especially turned up for this. I think they're tired of losing to Washington State. And I think the players probably feel that too. They've got a roster full of guys who have never beaten us. So I think all of those things together, I'll go ahead and go 45%, just like you.
Great. And I'm 100% sure we are about to take a break.
Second break. We're back.
Woo.
Woo.
All right.
All right. 4 games to go, Craig.
Man, yeah, that break got me ready.
I'm feeling all recharged and re-energized for this 4-game stretch to end the season.
Well, we took a bye. They're taking a bye.
That's right.
After Oregon, and then one of those other House of Horrors, WSU heads to Berkeley, California, which just should not be a tough place to play by any logical stretch of the imagination, but it is for
us.
It is
for some reason.
Obviously, last time they went to Cal, WSU was ranked number 8 in the country, 6-0, and after visiting Oregon, so the schedule is playing out similarly in that regard. But obviously, we're deeper into the schedule this time, and just got absolutely whooped. And we saw the time before that WSU, let's see, 2015 they played, that was the 3rd and 36 game, and then 2017 was the 36-3 game. So a lot of 3s and 6s running through my head now.
Yes.
But yeah, so yeah.
And by the way, don't forget that we totally would have lost last year if Cal hadn't inexplicably changed their quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For people who don't know, that's a jab at John Wilner, who is absolutely convinced that Wazoo would have lost that game. Yeah. Even though we fumbled the ball at the 1-yard line through the end zone. They would have given us a nice little cushion.
Yeah. So
but other than that,
you can't do that what if. You have to do
that's right. Only the what ifs that benefit the losers. And they did lose, by the way.
Well, yeah. So, yeah, that was obviously tough. Cal, limited Minshew in the air raid quite a bit last year, particularly in finishing drives. They have a pretty good defense with Justin Wilcox. You always expect him to have a good defense, but the offense is a huge question. They obviously they kind of flipped what they were under Sonny Dykes, and now it's just and mostly inept offense, but a very, very good defense. And so, it's a little scary about on the road. You just think, God, there's just no way they can win at Berkeley, right? But they have in the Mike Leach era, in 2013, that kind of 44-22 win. It was a little bit of fluky, and so all the fluky things that happened to the benefit of WSU that year. A couple Cal fumbling, near the end zone a couple times, and so there is a chance that WSU doesn't get every bad break against them going in Cal, even though it always feels that way. I think WSU is the better team, probably markedly better team, but still it's in Cal, so that kind of it brings me down to a toss-up because it's at Cal, 50-50.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can buy that line of reasoning. I still think that their offense is going to be quite bad, and I think that our offense is going to be quite good. And even though their defense might be, really the best defense in the Pac-12, and we have typically struggled with really good defenses, particularly Washington, right? I also think, though, that, when we think back to last year's game, I mean, it was rainy and cold. Like, it was a late night game, and it was, I think it might have even been a little windy also, but I know it was rainy. And so it was just like the conditions were not ideal, for us to do what we do. And I understand that's part of the deal. I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying, like, okay, so if we're talking about the way that Cal shut us down last year, maybe, playing a game in Berkeley, even in, early November, is, maybe not quite as big of a deal, and we'll be able to do what we do. I think that the strength of their defense is not the strength of Washington's defense, which is their corners and their safeties, which tend to close down the passing spaces. I think their strength is really their pass rush, and their ability to stop the run. Very strong linebackers. Evan Weaver obviously is great. Those are the kinds of things that don't necessarily give us, huge amounts of problems. So yeah, I'm going to go a little bit higher than you. I'm going to go 60%, which, might be a little ambitious and a little exciting, but I also think that Cal on the whole is maybe not as good as people are projecting. I still think that they're going to struggle to be a bowl team.
All right, which they did last year. So, so next up, keeping with the Bay Area schools, this time coming back for Dad's weekend, probably one of the later Dad's weekends WSU has ever had.
Dad's going to have to get super drunk for that.
Yeah, this is going to be a cold one. It's going to be, we're playing Stanford on November 16th. So WSU again, 3 years in a row has beaten Stanford. Should have beat them in 2015 as well if they correctly called a Christian McCaffrey fumble.
Yep.
Or Eric Powell just hits that sixth field goal, and then, WSU's really game plan. Stanford obviously came out, changed their whole philosophy to try to beat WSU last year. Still didn't work out.
It's so wild, by the way. I don't think that development. I know we're going on a sidetrack here, but that has never got enough attention. Like, David Shaw basically came out and said, I dedicated myself for the last year to try and figure out how to beat Wazoo, and I still couldn't do it. It was so weird.
And he was
like crying. Yeah, he was like crying.
Yeah.
I was like, holy crap, man, this is crazy.
Yeah, little Wazoo.
Yeah. Anyway, continue.
So Stanford, they're getting it's interesting just watching kind of the national. I think Stanford is kind of a lot of how people believing that they will be solid is just the history of the program under David Shaw, which is definitely it's hard to believe that Stanford would be anything less than an 8-win team.
Yep.
under David Shaw. And I think, I believe I buy into that for sure. That I could see them being a fringe top 25 team, which is where they're at right now. But again, this will be, I think it'll be a tough game, and I think it'll be a close game, especially given the weather, the coldness. It's funny. I just watched the 2017 game, which was on November 8th.
November 4th.
A couple years.
Looking at
November 4th.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember I couldn't go to that game because it was 2 weeks from B's due date. So, but that was tough weather. It snowed a little bit during the game, and WSU definitely was limited a bit in what they could do, but it kind of grinded out a win with some good defense and a timely offense at the end. But I could see this game going similarly to that, but I do lean towards WSU being a better team. Mike Leach kind of having Stanford David Shaw's number a bit, given that they kind of threw everything at him last year and it still didn't work. But yeah, I'm going to go, but I still think it's going to be close, so I can't lean too heavy one way. So I'll probably go 60% WSU on this one.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Sometimes there's just bad matchups for teams. And I'm kind of thinking that we're just kind of a little bit of a bad matchup for Stanford. A big part of why Stanford hasn't been as good in the last few years is what they were in Shaw's first handful of years. The defense really hasn't been as strong as it was. The offense has been, what it is, but when it comes to their offense versus our defense, we do give them problems because they've got sort of these big hulking linemen, and, we get in there with these, smaller, quicker guys and penetrate and really disrupt things, cause them all kinds of problems. I mean, last year, Bryce Love did, really not much of anything, in last year's game. Most of the points they scored came through the air. So they, are they going to be able to do that again? I mean, I know a lot of people are very high on KJ Costello. I am less convinced only because I didn't see a guy commanding an offense last year the way that I might expect. I saw a guy throwing to some very physically gifted receivers, and not always in a way. And now, look, that's, again, not a super big knock, and I don't knock the guy for doing that. But I do question how effective he can be without, 6'5" receivers that he can throw jump balls to all the time. So, I'm in the same ballpark as you. I'm going to go 60%, just because, again, the last couple games have been tight. They've been tough. But I do think, November in Pullman with, being home for the first time, Dad's weekend, first home game since, in about a month.
It should be a pretty packed crowd because it's Dad's weekend.
Should be a pretty well lubricated crowd.
Yeah. Yep.
So I'm good with that. I'm good with 60%.
Great. And now we have a game that probably will not be packed.
Probably not.
This will probably be I'm assuming a very low attended Pac-12 game.
I wish it would be.
But
senior weekend.
But typically this happens with when there's two November games that are, and one of them's not one of them's not the Apple Cup. Even last year I think they had 3 November games. That Arizona whooping had pretty low attendance. This is going to be kind of a ho-hum atmosphere against Oregon State, I think. It's also the start of Thanksgiving break, so you see a lot of students might already be on the road by the time this comes around. Hopefully they do us a solid and have it be an earlier game, not a 7:30 game. But this screams 7:30 start all over it.
Yes, it does. Pac-12 Network, 7 o'clock start.
I'd be interested to go back and look at how often Oregon State WSU has been a 7 p.m. or later start. Yeah. I have a feeling it's pretty frequent. And on Pac-12 Network. Yes. But still, Oregon State is awful. And this is at home, and WSU has handled them pretty well. The weather will be in Oregon State's favor, I think. But there might even be snow. It's November 23rd.
It's true.
But I think WSU is just a much, much better team. So I'm going to go 90% WSU on this.
Okay.
one.
Yeah, that's pretty close to where I'm at. I'm going to go just a hair lower. I'm going to go 85%, just for all the factors that you mentioned. The fact that it is that dreaded home game before Thanksgiving break, which I wish to God they would stop scheduling for us. It's so obnoxious because every year, it's like, well, the students, see you later, because they can't wait one extra day to go home and see mommy and daddy. They get the whole damn week off and they can't hang out for a day, but whatever. Old man shaking his fist at the clouds.
As an aside, would you rather have the schedule, and this would obviously be tough for everyone's schedule in Pac-12, but just say theoretically in a vacuum, would you rather have the schedule, all three of those previous games moved up a week, taking out the bye, and then having the bye right here instead? Which has happened before. We've had double bye before Washington.
With this schedule, no. If you're telling me it's either or, if you're telling me I can either have the bye where it is, splitting up Oregon and Cal, which I really, really, really like, or I can have Oregon and Cal back-to-back, no bye, so have a run of ASU, Colorado, at Oregon, at Cal, and then Stanford, and then have a bye, or OSU and then have the bye. I definitely would rather have the bye where it is. So
great,
but
I agree.
Oregon State's bad and whatever. I mean, obviously there can be weirdness here. But I don't see a path to where Oregon State is actually any good or respectable or anything like that. Their talent level dipped very, very low with sort of all the coaching upheaval that they had the last handful of years. So I think I kind of feel like 85% might even be a little bit low. But I'm trying to be a little nicer, I guess. I don't know. So
I will say I know that this might be lowly attended, but I'm pretty excited. The next day is Amanda's birthday. I'm gonna take her to this game, and we're gonna leave B at the grandparents' house. So it's just gonna be us
nice.
in Pullman. Hopefully the Coug stays open.
Well,
so,
maybe we'll have to figure out a way to get over there.
Yeah, so it should be
without
fun.
Children.
But yeah, and we should be celebrating a win, 90%. I think it'll be a fun weekend. Y'all should go. Everyone should go. Who cares? Who cares?
Students should stay. Everyone should go.
Students stay. Everyone.
That's
Let's
right.
have we've won 39 games the last 4 years. Go to the fucking
That's right.
games. But anyway, so but yeah, so
There's only one game left, Craig. Yeah.
I know. Look, okay, it's obviously the Apple Cup.
Obviously.
Friday Apple Cup at UW. I went in 2015. I swear I'd never go again. I plan on keeping that promise. Or to UW. I'm even waffling whether I even want to go to an Apple Cup in Pullman again. But yeah. Oh man, I know, like, if you're to be more kind of logical about it, you'd give, WSU at least like a 10-15% chance. Even given the level of the teams, probably a 25 would make more sense.
Right. I mean, if we're talking just pure talent level, you're looking at like 20 to 30% at least, right?
Yeah. But I gotta go zero.
0% chance.
There's just no way.
There's just no way.
There's no way. I can't. I'm broken. I'm broken, man.
Yeah.
I can't. Yeah. I can't believe. I feel like last year was like there was like divine intervention to ensure that WSU doesn't win an Apple Cup. Like, so I just so I'm just going zero, man. It's probably gonna screw up my ending total a bit, but I gotta go zero on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go 1%. I'll give him a 1 in 100 chance.
Slow down, man. Jeez.
I'll give him a 1 in 100 chance to win the game. because crazy shit happens, right? Yeah, I mean, even we could win an Apple Cup. That's how crazy things could get. So, yeah, I mean, we've beaten this to death. I mean, it just for whatever reason, and I mean, I wrote about this after last year's Apple Cup, and it's basically what I talked about with Stanford. Like sometimes matchups are what they are. We like to throw the ball like 60 times a game, and UW happens to have, NFL level talent at every defensive back position. The holes to throw into are very tiny, and, whatever. In their offensive line is, they're not huge. They're sort of medium large, if that's a good way to put it. But they're very strong and they're very agile, and they tend to make, just sort of make mincemeat out of our defensive line. So, matchups are bad, whatever. Obviously, things could be weird. Maybe Jacob Eason is terrible, and maybe because we haven't laughed yet at the fact that their backup quarterback transferred. So maybe there's a situation where Jacob Eason is terrible, and maybe all these new defensive backs they've got and all the new players on defense they've got are actually not as good as the guys they've had before. Maybe Jimmy Lake didn't just recruit, more NFL players to put back there, and, maybe we have a 1 in 100 chance to do it. So that's where I'm going.
1%.
So you ready for
the journey from that 0 to 1 seems so long.
It does seem really, really long. It's like it seems like, the difference between 0% and 1% seems bigger than the difference between like 1% and 50%.
It absolutely does.
Like once you've convinced yourself that you can win, I mean, anything's possible, right?
Yeah.
You want the totals?
Let's
All right,
do it.
So starting with your totals, you have projected 7.45 wins.
Yeah.
So if we are going with strict rounding, you've predicted 7 wins, but you've predicted something like 7 and 8 wins being the most likely result, somewhere in there. So how you feeling about your 7.45 victories?
I do. The schedule is tough this year with all the road games.
There's no doubt. It's a tough schedule.
This is probably about as tough of a Pac-12 road schedule as WSU's seen in a long time. I do think like 8-4 is the most likely scenario.
Yeah.
So I'm probably a little below what if it was 0.1, if I would have given a 10% chance, probably what scared me off is like some of the history with it's funny when you think about how your mind works. I probably took more percentage off for some of the history with like UW and history with ASU and Cal than I gave benefit for Oregon and Stanford, right, and whoever else, and Colorado or who else, Utah. Like, so I didn't give much of a benefit for the history there, but I minused a bunch more percentage for, at Cal, at Tempe, at UW. So, it makes sense to me that I end up lower than maybe what my general gut feeling is, like when I think about it more generally and less on a per game basis. Yeah. So, yeah, I think 8-4 is probably a more likely scenario. Now, when we do our Coug Center preview pick and I end up at 9-3, don't freak out on me. It's very different. It's very different when you're picking the team going to win versus the percentage.
It is actually really different. And I think that's where, that can kind of cut both ways too, because, people always look at like the Ken Palm predictions for the basketball team, right? Where it's like, well, everybody knows our basketball team is horrible. And then the predictions will come out where he'll do this with the percentages, right? The probability that you're going to win each game. And then people go, well, how on earth can any predictive thing worth its salt predict us for, 4 Pac-12 wins or something, right? And we're not even going to win a game this year. And it's like, that's kind of how it goes. But it does also tend to go the other direction where, the low end maybe tends to be a little bit higher. The high end maybe tends to be a little bit lower. And then as the season moves along and you start getting absolute results in one direction or the other, then you can start kind of maybe getting a better sense of what what the total is going to be. If you are curious, you did predict with your percentages, you predicted 5 home wins and 2.5 road losses, or road wins. Sorry, 2.5 road wins. So that's kind of how it broke down for you. You feel good about 5 strong home victories, and then, perhaps a losing or middling record on the road.
Yeah, that's I just given the difficulty of the road schedule. You're going at Houston, that's about as tough of a B game as you're going to get, and then at Utah, at Oregon, at Arizona State, at Cal,
right.
at Washington.
Yep.
Like that's tough, man. That's just you're playing. You're playing 2 of the conference's best teams on the road. And probably
Maybe
3 actually.
All three.
3 of probably
the
probably
3
the
best
top
teams.
3 best teams in the conference on
Yep.
the road. And then you get another top half team at home when the weather's going to be shitty.
Yep.
You get so it's basically I could see this being one of those seasons where we front load some wins and then kind of grind out towards the end of the year.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So mine added up to 7.79, so 7.8, just a shade under 8, which I'm kind of in the same spot as you, which is 8 feels about right. If I'm just predicting the number, 8 feels like it's probably about right. The difference between mine and yours came from me maybe being a little bit higher on some of the road games. I had them down for 2.8 road wins, so I feel closer to 3 than to 2. I think what's really going to tell the tale is, can they get one of Utah or Oregon or Washington? I think that's
right.
kind of the big thing. Like if they don't get any of those, then I think, you're looking at like a 7 or 8 win season. If they can get one of those, then you're looking at maybe 8 or 9 wins, and then you feel, like we're, like you're being pretty successful. So, the other road games just don't, and again, I think the difference here is what this is. The other road games just don't scare me much. Houston doesn't scare me much. Cal doesn't scare me as much as maybe it should, but I still feel, pretty decent that this may be a year where Cal actually kind of takes that year 3 dip under Wilcox, kind of like we did with Leach, where it's like, you make that immediate turnaround, and then as you're transitioning, that third year can sometimes be a little bit difficult. So, and then Arizona State, again, feel like we're the better team. So feel pretty good about all 3 of those games. If you can get 2 or maybe all 3 of those, and then get 1 of the the other games, then you're definitely on target, I think, for 8 wins. So yeah, 8 wins. Are you feeling, how do you feel if it plays out with 8 wins?
Yeah, if 8 wins is I feel like the program is still solid, still headed in the right direction. Just given the schedule is more difficult this year than it was last year, and 8 wins. If you're coming out of this with 8 wins, which means you probably got Utah or got Oregon on the road, that's pretty. You feel like you're still, because 8 wins means you probably are at 5-4 in conference ish. So you're still probably in the top half of the conference, which is where WSU has been in the last 4 years. You're probably at like Foster Farms Bowl or whatever it's called, Red Box Bowl or something at this point. If you're
something like that.
If you're 5-4,
Yep.
So you probably it's you just logically you're assuming that this year is going to be a little bit of a down from last year.
It's hard to imagine
10 11 wins again
in the regular season.
10 wins in regular season. Yeah, it's hard to imagine that, but it's also it's not out of the realm of possibility. Given, like, if you look at our probabilities, like, I don't think either of us put, other than for UW, put less than 40% on any of them, which means we're confident that WSU has a pretty good shot to win every single game, and most of the games we kind of believe that they have a better than average shot to win.
And that's where that's where the program's come. That's where we're at. We are a program now where apparently other than the great Purple Devil in Seattle, other than that, we have a good shot against anybody, at least a good shot against anybody. So that's sort of a mark of to what level we've arrived, and that feels good. I think 7 wins would feel like a pretty extreme disappointment. 8 wins I think feels good. 9 wins I think feels real good.
Yeah,
9 wins would be like, yeah, I mean, look, I don't care what, whatever. We won 10 games last year before the bowl game. I would never, I'm not sure I would ever get to a point where I would be disappointed with 9 wins. And I don't think I would ever get to a point where I would feel like 8 wins is a disappointment. Obviously, like you said earlier, it depends on how things play out. Depends on how you get there. Obviously, that's part of it. But, I'm just not sure our program could ever get to a level where I'm expecting, 9, 10 wins every year, or 11 wins, whatever it ends up being. I just don't know that I would ever feel like I expected that's a thing that is going to happen regularly enough, or that we would have a season where we feel like, yeah, we're going to be a top 10 type team. It can happen. I mean, obviously Mike Leach had one of those teams and they went to the Rose Bowl. So, but that's happened one time in our entire program history where someone went, that team is a top 10 team. They're going to be awesome. And then they were, a lot of things got to come together. And frankly, I'm not sure that Mike Leach would be around long enough for that to happen, but maybe, who knows? This season, 8 or 9 wins, I feel great, really.
Yep, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that took longer than I thought it was going to, but yeah, apparently we're excited about football. So to talk about football, we're having a lot more football in the next 4 months. So please hit subscribe. Give us a like or subscribe wherever you're at, and then give us 5-star rating so that other people can find us. Please, you can follow me on Twitter at the Craig Powers. You can follow the podcast, aka Jeff, on Twitter at Pod versus Everyone. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email us at podcastversuseveryone@gmail.com. I'd love questions, maybe after the season we do a mailbag and stuff.
Because nobody's ever done that before.
Or a bi-week mailbag. We could do
That'd
a
be
bi-week
a good idea. I like that
idea.
Yeah. So start thinking of your bi-week questions now.
But I'm stoked. It's friggin' fucking football season, and we're gonna be, you and I will both be in Pullman on Saturday watching Cougar football, drinking beer at the tailgate, maybe eating Cougar Country. I don't know. Maybe if they're open. But if not, either way, it will be a great weekend, and hope to see lots of you there. And please, again, subscribe. We'll have lots more to come for the rest of the season. And go Cougs. We're going
to talk to you on Friday.
Go
Cougs.
Go Cougs.